talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, since the national championship's on your mind, let's pick your brain there a little bit before we move on to Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a path to victory for Notre Dame, or is Ohio State and their talent a foregone conclusion?
You bet. I see a chance for them to win, just as Ohio State beat Miami in 2002 and Penn State beat Miami in 86. It can be done. You're going to probably need turnovers. You're probably going to need your defense to play incredible. And much like those two games, well, Vinny Testaverde was a really good college quarterback, but those defenses made the Miami quarterbacks in those two games very uncomfortable. And that's what they're going to have to do with Will Howard. They're going to have to play a really good game, really solid. I don't think Notre Dame's going to win 35-31.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that they can win 17-14. I wouldn't pick it. I think I'm going to pick Ohio State to win the game. But, yes, there's a path. There's absolutely a path. And you need everything to kind of go right. And that's happened a few times in college football history. And I selected two games that were national title games. Miami-Penn State was a true national title game, and the Ohio State-Miami game was a true national title game. So you need some things to go right. Do I think Notre Dame can pull it off? I do. I wouldn't pick them to do it. But oddly, I think almost all of America is rooting for them. I think almost everybody's going to be rooting for Notre Dame tonight. Probably the first time that's happened in a while. But their coach is really likable, and their team's likable, and they're tough, and they still have great uniforms. They still have some of the best uniforms in sports, and maybe the best fight song and all that. So nobody's forgotten that. And I think it's going to be a fun game that I do think Ohio State will win, but we'll see.
Man, this is probably the least matchup thing of a game of this magnitude that I've gotten into, because I think this will be so much more about intangibles. It's weird to look at a game like this, because if I look at, statistically, run defense versus rush offense, they're even in a lot of statistical categories. It's just that Ohio State has better players. So I took that kind of aspect out of it. If Notre Dame is gonna win the football game, who needs to be better in your opinion? Is it Ohio or Notre Dame's wide receivers or Notre Dame's running backs?
Well, I suppose I would say that they're going to have to throw the ball some, whether or not that's receivers getting open or they just happen to be open. I guess I would say wide receivers. I would say that it would be the defensive backs.
They're good. That's a good group. That's a really good group.
It is. They're going to be man-to-man, I think, a lot. Well, it depends. It kind of depends on what they want to do. So last night, the Ravens, they kept their two safeties back, although Kyle Hamilton's so good that he's almost everywhere. But they kept their two safeties back, and they're like, all right, Josh Allen, we're going to give you 4 yards and, 4 and 5 yards underneath. You need to figure it out. And Buffalo kind of figured it out eventually. I could see Notre Dame trying that coverage strategy, although I don't know if it'll work quite that well. Or they could be more aggressive and say, hey, we're gonna be physical with your receivers, and we're gonna make Will Howard make great throws into tight windows. They could try that, or they could try to zone it up and try to get a couple of picks. I don't think that'll work. I think Ohio State's receivers are too good. So I think it kind of comes down to whether Notre Dame can slow down Ohio State's offense, the passing portion of it. And then, of course, Ohio State can run the football. They have better running backs than Notre Dame. They do. They do. Even as good as Notre Dame's running backs are, Jeremiah Love's great. Ohio State's running backs, if you put them together, they're better. So this is a very, very big challenge for Notre Dame's defense. They have to play great. Can they play great? We're gonna find out. They have to. This is the comparison I use is Penn State Miami in '86. Now most people do not remember that game. I just went back and watched as much as I could on YouTube. And Penn State's defense played incredibly that day, amazingly, against one of the most talented teams in college football history. And I think they picked off Testaverde 5 times or something. They're gonna have to play like that. They have to play incredible football to win, and they might. You never know.
Yeah, next time don't wear fatigues.
Yeah, that is one of the greatest college football teams of all time to never win. It's 83 Nebraska, it's 86 Miami, it's 02 Miami. There aren't many other teams that were better than those three teams that didn't win national titles.
You know who might be in that discussion is the SC team that Texas beat.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
team
That was a wagon.
Loaded.
They were. That's true. The one thing I'll say about that is that I think Texas was actually just about as good.
Vince Young was, for sure.
That night was about two great teams playing each other. The other three games I mentioned, those were true magnitude upsets, huge upsets. Yeah. And so that's what has to happen tonight. Notre Dame's going to have to upset Ohio State. I know the line's only 8 or 9, but
shoot, that's a lot.
Everybody knows it could. Everybody knows it could easily be, 38-10. I mean, it could happen. So the variables here are wild, and I think it could be 16-13 Notre Dame wins the national championship, and no one ever forgets this team, or it could be 38-10, and everybody's like, well, yeah, Ohio State was supposed to do that, and so it's somehow not a big deal that they won the national title, which I think will be the reaction. I think it'll be like, well, yeah, I mean, what were they supposed to do? They were supposed to win it. And so we'll see how people react after the game if Ohio State wins.